I just had the opportunity to sit down with Danielle Fauteaux, who runs a very unique agency that is a done-with-you solution, helping coach agency owners to growing their revenue, and not just founder-led, but rather building a systematic approach that allows you to grow it independent of yourself, leveraging your team, leveraging systems from inbound to account-based marketing, and building a really, really interesting model where you absorb, take on all the knowledge, and are able to run with it in perpetuity. We talked about all of the very high value tactics and strategies that exist in growing agencies, a lot of the pitfalls, and if you're an agency owner, I think this is the one for you, so enjoy. All right, Danielle, I'm very excited to have the opportunity to sit down with you. We had a great conversation when we first met, and like me, you are in the agency space and have lived and breathed it for a minute, but I don't want to butcher your background and all the incredible things that you are currently working on, and even the model of your business and all the things that I'm remembering now. I was so excited to sit down with you about. So let me pass it over to you to introduce yourself, and then let's dive in.
Thanks, Yoni. I'm glad that we can finally record this conversation. I think both of us felt like last time we should have just had the record button already going. So now we get the chance for redemption on that. But my name is Danielle Fauteaux. I'm helping agencies and other professional service providers really get past growth plateaus by breaking through mindsets and building out strategic revenue generation and lead generation systems. So what that looks like is a consulting and coaching model where we go through the momentum framework, build out a strategic relationship building plan, inbound marketing plan, account-based marketing plan, customer experience enhancements, and then also consultative selling techniques, and tying that all together into this system that you as an agency or professional service firm can use to acquire, expand, and retain clients so that your business is growing. And a lot of that really hinges on this mindset that revenue generation is a team sport. So you'll hear me talk about that a lot. I know we're going to get into that today too, Yoni, but that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. I think you've given a very juicy overview, and there's so many topics that I'm very eager to dive into, almost at a one-to-one basis. But one thing that I think, just to start off here, one of the things that I would say is interesting in how you opened it up, less about the model and more about sort of the ICP, the ideal client profile that you're targeting, are companies that hit, as you define it, sort of a growth plateau. And, you know, for those listening, for agency owners, for people that are sort of trying to figure it out, like, what is that moment, or what are the typical signs that would indicate that you're either heading to that direction or, you know, you're at that growth plateau?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things you can be looking for. So the first is actually looking at your revenue. So typically there's growing pain and growing stages at around the 1.5 to 2 million mark for most agencies, assuming you're operating with healthy financials. And then there's usually another inflection point at around the 5.5 to 7 million, depending on your services, your model, where you're going to be experiencing pains again. So that's one way to look at it. The other way that I really like to break out the way to observe this is actually the ebb and flow between business development and growth and operational growth and the needs there. So if you are a startup and you're trying to get to your first million and a half, you're going to be developing a lot in the business development arena. Once you get to that inflection point, you're going to be trying to fix what's breaking because you don't have systems in place. You're trying to delegate more. You're trying to get the right people in the right seats. And so you're going to focus a little bit more on operations. But once you get that all squared away, as you're growing into that next stage up to that about 5 million mark, you're going to be in business development growth mode again. So you're going to be refining your processes, really leaning into biz dev and rev gen efforts. And then you're going to hit that other inflection point where you're going to have things breaking again that you're going to have to fix operationally as you continue to scale. So it's this constant back and forth between operations and business development that I find so many professional services and agencies just kind of ebb and flow back and forth between as they're growing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like that's a reality that even I've experienced, and, getting to that first 1.5 is a journey, but it looks very different, once you're at that 5 and 10 million, the landscape, like you said, the ebb and flow of it shifts so dramatically. And, I would say at least now I'm trying to back solve for so much of the things that I should have done in building a better baseline, that all this leakage, all of this literally money on the floor, opportunities on the floor, really, that we should have been scooping up, that we're not. And it's as a result of sort of not hitting each of those incremental growth stages at the right pace and, with the right intentionality. Let me ask, with, for example, I guess there's sort of two parts. One, I'm really curious to understand what your process looks like when you're trying to assess or audit a business and understand sort of where they're at, and, what are the levers that they might be able to actually sort of invoke to create these uptick and up into the right moments for them. But if for someone listening at home, like, what would be some of the things you would say first that they should sort of self-assess, or what would sort of indicate to them, maybe I've got a problem outside of just, I think if you're just exclusively looking at the revenue number, you might not be seeing the picture holistically. So what are some of the telltale signs that someone might be experiencing in their own business, let's say at that first marker or the second marker?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Well, you always want to be looking at where the puck is going, not where the puck is right now. And so identifying several core things that are, one, some are outside of your control, but you can be aware of them and pivot your business to account for them. And that is, what industry do you serve? What vertical are you serving? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Is it stable? What are the disruptors that could be coming down the line 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now? And how do you establish your business as an expert in that arena? The second one is relationships. Your people are your greatest asset, and your network is your net worth. And so the network that you have personally as a founder, but also the networks that your key staff have, is really critical as a professional service firm and an agency, because people buy from people. You're providing a professional service. You might have productized offerings as well, but at the end of the day, it's a relationship business, and you have to remember that that's your key asset. So investing there, investing in hiring the right people, investing in retaining people, reducing your turnover, that is huge for agencies and professional service firms. The other things that you can be looking at are market fit. Are you providing what the market wants? It's this basic of demand and supply. So if people are demanding something and you can supply it, you're going to be growing. So those really basic business principles are really foundational. Does that answer your question, Yoni?
It does. Absolutely.
What would you add to that?
I'm trying to reflect back on some of the early sort of stages around it. I was sort of just mentally, I got myself caught in a little bit of a loop when you touched on one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite phrases: "Your network is your net worth," and I think it's so true. But when you started talking about that and the people inside of it, I started thinking a lot about the value of personal branding and that as a lead driver for sales versus like the building of your brand, which is a separate topic. So I started falling in a loop. But coming back to it, I think that for early stage companies, to your point, so much of it is founder-led growth. And there's almost two key components, I believe, that almost need to shift in your psyche. Is one, like any evolving operation, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should be doing it. And two, like founder-led growth at a, let's call it a 1-to-1, or even like a 1-to-many, but not many, it has its limitations. And so it's understanding, like, where do you put the emphasis? Are you going and investing, or at what point, when is the right time to actually move from founder-led growth and relationships to, you touched on, and I really want to get into these topics like account-based marketing, ABM, and inbound, and sort of cultivating those strategies, because there's always going to be a lag. It's like, I think for a lot of people, it's like, cool, I got Danielle to help me, and the next week I'm going to be making $5 million. And it's like, no, it's the long game. I think one really cool thing that I was just reviewing now, that we're now at this maturity stage in the business, is that I'm looking at the sources of where all of our leads are coming from, and like each of the stages of the drop off of the funnel, and where we should focus our investment. And ChatGPT has become like a meaningful driver, at least at the lead stage, which just goes to show the years of investment into SEO is sort of paying off. So I've said a lot of things, but to sort of answer your question, I think the things to add, or the takeaways for me, is just understanding when is that right moment. And also, like, I guess my question, my responsive question to you would be, when should a founder consider moving? Like, what is the approximate right stage for a founder to say it's no longer time for it to just be solely on founder-led growth? And two, what are the steps that you would suggest someone should take in order to do it, in a healthy way? Because if you simply switch 180 and say I'm done, I think people might find themselves in a bit of hot water quicker than they might like.
They do. They absolutely do. This is a huge problem in the agency space and with other professional service firms, because a founder is going to have the most trust with a prospect. And so they close deals at a higher rate. They close deals faster. They're able to strike up conversations a lot easier at networking events, and even just when they're doing virtual conversations. So they're able to handle objections, really provide that level of trust and service and confidence for the buyer that other people just, they're not going to have that same level of authority unless you, the founder, build them up into that position. And this is where it becomes something that you can invest in, and it's not something outside of your control. One of the things that I regularly talk about is building up team members and additional leaders in your own organization that can start to fill some of those roles that you, the founder, originally held. Going back to what we talked about in terms of identifying like where you're at in growth stages, typically a founder-led sales program can sustain the growth of a business up to like $2 to $3 million typically. Where that starts to get really dicey is when you're trying to grow to 5 million to 10 million greater. Because of that, you need to be building up additional sales representatives, team members, people that can act as an agent for your own business along the way. You don't want to get to that $2-3 million mark and be like, oh shoot, like who else is going to do sales so that we can keep growing? You need to build that into your business growth plan. One of the, I think, missed opportunities a lot of businesses have that I bring up regularly with my clients is actually to identify really, really charismatic and strong project managers and people that are close to the product, because they have so much familiarity with how the process works, what the product is, what it solves for the customer, and they know how to alleviate problems that crop up during the sales to delivery handoff phase because they've been there, they've been on the other side of it. And so your customer experience is going to be much, much better because it's not such a cold handoff. It's going to be a lot warmer and a better experience. So I would definitely say, think about that in your business. The other side of that is it's a lot easier to hire for a project manager and train them in a project management role than it is to hire a salesperson that's going to be successful. You've probably experienced this, Yoni, and I am sure you've heard countless stories from your business friends as well of failing at hiring a salesperson because it is so common. And we idealize like, oh, I need a salesperson. I'm going to bring this person in and they're just going to magically bring in $1 million of revenue in the first 12 to 18 months. No, you have to set them up for success. And that's where building out that foundational inbound marketing and account-based marketing strategy will also support their success, because you're providing thought leadership and engaging materials for them to position themselves as a thought leader on in your industry. So a little bit of a long-winded answer. We can definitely dig into the details on some of those things as is helpful. But I really strongly recommend that business owners be much more proactive in building up leaders on their team and identifying people that would have the ability to do sales. And it doesn't have to feel salesy, because you're, at the end of the day, you're helping people when you're in sales. You're solving a problem, connecting them with a solution.
Absolutely. I mean, I asked you a challenging question on a pretty complex topic, so you needed to go there to give the answers. In answering your question, you made me think of, I guess, the problems that you would be running into quite frequently. And, I mean, you said something just then that I feel like it's one of the biggest missing links for so many agency owners. But before I start with the end in mind here, my question is really, what are the roles, and also what are the key sort of operational elements that you typically see most agency owners, founders, and generally people in the agency space missing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to talk about this at a mindset level, because I think that will be more applicable to different use cases. So a mindset that I often see is that business development and operations are completely distinct from one another. And that's just not true in a service-based business. You actually need to have a mindset that revenue generation is a team sport, and that every single person on the team has a role to play in driving revenue for the company. So even down to the accounting level, I'm talking. So you've got the sales team, of course, you've got business development, you've got marketing, you've got operations with account managers, project managers, subject matter experts, the actual implementers. Every single person is doing something for the client experience, and that drives revenue and growth retention. Every single person can also be observing and identifying areas of opportunity within existing clients. So active listening skills is a huge area of opportunity to develop within your team, so that you know that at any stage of the client journey with your company, someone's going to be listening for additional problems and providing options to solve that for them. Whether you decide to enable every single person on your team to provide that solution, or if you create a system where they pass them back to a salesperson, that will depend on your business. But the premise of making sure that you've got those listening points, those people along the way that are equipped to understand that's part of their job as well, because they are so close to the customer, is really important. And that's a huge missed opportunity. Do you see that as well, Yoni?
I'm just sitting here and thinking about how I'm missing that opportunity, and I need you. But yeah, yes. I mean, in all seriousness, I think that coming back to your mindset point, I think that that's probably one of the first and hardest things for a lot of founders and agency owners to be able to sort of shift from, is thinking, I think there's sort of two components to it. You mentioned that, founders are typically going to be the ones who will convert and generate more opportunities at a higher percentage than others. And I think that from the mindset perspective, and this was, I think, a journey for me, though I did find the most incredible salesperson who we've worked together now for 5 years. And, she was probably a year into the business, a hire, and I've been fortunate to bring on some other great team members in that function as well. But it's the acceptance of saying they're going to go at, initially maybe 60% or 70% of what you will. And on their best day, I mean, I maybe argue that might not be the case anymore, but I think you have to mentally be okay in saying, if they go at 80% of what you can do, then that is going to be great. That's going to free you up to focus on more strategic opportunities. So I think that's sort of one of the mindset hurdles. But the other side that, I think we are failing in as a business, and it's probably a byproduct of the speed in which we sort of grew operational complexity in our business is that we are back solving so much for almost siloed like accountability and delivery. So for example, our customer success account management team, their focus is all about like retaining monthly recurring revenue on the clients they service, but they are the ones who deal with all of our clients that are having great experiences, and the opportunity to incentivize them in the right ways to pass back to sales when there's an opportunity, maybe it's someone else in the business that we could work with to help them with, or maybe someone knows someone else who could be using our services, and it's the highest degree of relationship and trust, and yet it's sort of this, empty vessel of, unused potential that just sort of sits on the shelf and sits, for me at least, in a little bit of the too hard bucket, which is terrible because you really need to be, like you said, leveraging and understanding that every single person who's delivering value in your business is listening, hearing, and able to sort of, make assessments to see how much more you can add value to them. So yeah, I mean, I really agree. And this is almost a therapy session for me, Danielle. So helping me get on the right track and in the right mindset on those things. I'm curious, because you touched on a topic that I only have a limited knowledge about, and yet it's something that is, I think, so central, particularly for agencies or generally B2B businesses who are trying to go after meaningful clients, and that's account-based marketing. And I'd love to, before we end today, I definitely want to talk a little bit more about sort of like inbound strategies and how you approach that, and the idea around personal brand versus brand. But can you just help people understand what is account-based marketing, and who is it relevant for?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Account-based marketing is relevant for any professional service firm that wants to be growing and has a targeted understanding of their ideal customer profile. You, with account-based marketing, aren't just waiting for opportunities to land in your lap. You are actively pursuing the opportunities with the companies and the clientele that you want to be working with. So it shifts the responsibility back on you. I think that a lot of agencies fell into the trap with digital marketing of like, everything's just like going to come to me and it's going to be wonderful and I'm not going to have to do anything hard. And that's just not the reality. The digital landscape is so saturated now as well that if you're not targeting specific companies and individuals that you want to be working with, you're going to struggle. And so I want to reiterate that account-based marketing and inbound marketing, they can leverage some of the same components, but the approach, the strategic outcomes that you're shooting for are slightly different. So the strategic outcome of inbound marketing is to get leads to come to you. The strategic outcome for account-based marketing is to build trust with prospects that you have identified and close the business. So with that in mind, you can still be using similar value add resources like market research that you've done, different materials like calculators, pricing guides, those kinds of pieces on your website. You can be leveraging video, podcast materials, blog content, social media, email marketing, all of those components, they tie into both strategies to support everything that you're doing. The foundational difference with account-based marketing is you're leaning much more heavily into the relationship building foundational pillar, because you have to identify the right people, go to them. So whether they're going to specific trade shows, or they're going to be at certain conferences, or you invite them out to coffee or dinner, those are the things that you need to be doing to build relationships. You can also deploy things like webinars or like workshop sessions so that you're building trust and not just starting out by hard selling them. You definitely don't want to be doing that. You want to add value first. With all of that being the case, account-based marketing can also be used if you're selling to like corporations and enterprise level companies. You can use account-based marketing to get into other departments and other functions of their business as well. If you know someone already, but you don't do any work in their marketing department or their product or with their brand teams, you can work an account-based marketing plan to expand your reach inside of an existing client organization as well, so that you're growing revenue opportunities there too. Realistically, at the end of the day, a healthy business is going to get 70 to 80% of their revenue in a given year from existing clients, and the other 20 to 30% should be coming from net new business. And so just hold those numbers in mind as you're building out your approach as well.
Awesome. Let's go even deeper into ABM, because I think for any agency owners listening, having that clarity and understanding, I'm just going to restate what I've heard, and then what I'd love you to do is just give sort of a tangible example
Sure.
of what ABM would look like for an agency owner. So what I'm hearing is, when trying to target your ideal client profile that might be a larger organization or a company that has multiple functions, the genesis of the idea is, how do I add value first, and how do I seek out in some form of outbound manner, whether it's webinars or content, or I don't know,
A LinkedIn message, sending an email, actually picking up the phone. Yeah, all of those things.
So based on your experience, like, again, I'm trying to give freebies away, like from an ideas perspective for agency owners, like, what's been some form of a strategy or a tactic that you have seen work for an agency owner? And you can be sort of narrowly focused, and how expansive is it? Is it, one prong, multi-prong? And yeah, I think you're getting what I'm.
Yeah, absolutely. One example that I recommend to 98.7% of the clients that I work with is to provide basically like an industry update. So like a state of the industry, have that content in a couple different formats, be speaking to it in little snippets on your LinkedIn profile as well, personally, not just the brand profile. And the reason I recommend that particular approach is because at that point, you're adding value that isn't about you. It happens to be about the industry that you both are related to. And so you're creating credibility and adding value without pitching anything. You're simply helping them understand what's going on in their own marketplace. And at the same time, you're opening up an avenue for them to do better at their job and build a relationship with you. That relationship can then turn into other conversations of exactly what you do to solve additional problems that they have personally in their role. So having an industry, like state of the industry conversation driver, I think is really, really critical. I also recommend using that as a tool to directly feed meetings onto salespeople's calendars. Instead of just providing a report, for example, you can actually just have them request a meeting, and then you go over the report with them in the meeting. That's a lot easier of a pitch than it is to be like, hey, like, I want to talk to you. Do you want to talk to me? Like, let's schedule some time. Like, that's not going to get you very far. So adding that value right from the get-go, making them look good in front of their team members by equipping them with that information is really critical as well. So that's something I've seen work really well. The distribution channels that you can be using, I mean, you've got your website, you've got your email list, you want to be growing your email list as well with someone feeding other contacts at companies into your CRM with your inbound marketing. You want to leverage LinkedIn where it's relevant. You can use Sales Navigator. You can use scraping tools as well. Like, I mean, there's so many out there, but just building out and doing the activities that's going to build your CRM, your list, all of that is what I would recommend there. And then pitching the value and sending out emails, seeing them at events and saying like, hey, like, we have this thing. Do you want to schedule time? Like, get your calendar up on your phone, put something in there, and you're good to go to have that conversation. So you want to take advantage of all of those opportunities.
Awesome insights. And I think for anyone who's trying to reframe or build out that next stage, I think for a lot of founders, I know my approach. I'll always tell everyone, I've never sold a thing in my life. I'm coming to any conversation and thinking, what is a pain point and what value can I add? And it might not even be connected to the services that we offer. It's really like, how do how do you actively listen and add value to your point? And I think what you are demonstrating here is exactly that. It's how do I give them a piece of high value content that is loosely connected? There's got to be some connectivity. It would be weird, I don't know, if I did like an oil and gas report on the viability of natural gas and we didn't target that market, and there was
make sure it's targeted to your industry vertical for sure.
but as long as it's it's sort of addressing an insight that is loosely connected, and there's dialogue or a means to say, like you said, and I think that's a great takeaway for anyone listening, is if you create this incredible, whether it's a white paper or, educational piece of content that is of material value, having a professional walk them through it is a very soft touch, high value way to say, let's build rapport. I'm not going to sell you. I'm just going to help you on the things that are going to be valuable to you. And I think that's generally like an approach that I really also believe in deeply, because if you can, it's like showing people the way of what's working for you in your business. I'm just thinking now from an agency lens, it's like if you're able to show a business how you were able to bring them into your funnel as a marketing agency, just saying, this is how you ended up, this is how clearly I've tracked it, and this is my return on investment on that structure. It's like it would give that prospect like a degree of confidence in saying they really know what they're talking about. They've shown that on me, and I think that's other ways to both build trust, have that transparency, and show like, don't just do as I say, do as I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Relationship building is at the core of all of it too. And so much of it hinges on being willing to take the time and the energy to build those relationships. It's a lot easier to just put the content up behind a form and let people read it on their own time. It takes a lot more effort to schedule a meeting, have that meeting, do follow-ups that are really thoughtful and build that relationship. But the value to your pipeline is so much greater that it's absolutely worth the investment to do it that way instead.
100%. And if you can find a way to have it with your sales people and not you, all the more.
Absolutely. This is the perfect opportunity to be establishing others in your organization as those thought leaders that people can trust as an advisor. This is the perfect avenue to be doing that.
Absolutely. I've got a handful of questions still left for you. But the first of which, and we've touched on it in a couple of different ways here, is just strategically for agency owners, for any B2B salesperson, the value of personal brand. That was the other thing you said, is that we sell to people and not businesses, versus that of sort of promoting the brand. There's the reality when you come to a point in time where for a lot of business owners, like having a liquidity event and being able to sell the asset that they've worked to build is obviously an exciting opportunity. However, they being too tied to the brand or spending too much on personal brand can actually devalue the brand. But in the converse, if you're too heavy on the brand and not on the personal side, you might be leaving a lot of opportunities, unturned. So just curious to hear your perspective on how these things sort of work in counterbalance.
Yeah. My perspective, if I were to sum it up, which there are nuances, so don't mishear me on this. There are nuances in special situations, but in general, even if you don't think that you're building personal brand ties to your business brand, in your customer's mind, there is a person. There is that brand that they are attached to in your organization. So it's happening whether or not you think that it is or whether or not that's your intention. So you might as well lean into it and build up personal brands with key people in your agency, in your professional service firm that can represent you as an agent so that you don't run into those problems. I like to look at it as you have your agency brand as the kind of umbrella brand, and then you've got your personal brands underneath it. The personal brands are what's really driving the business outcomes much more, and they're what form the agency brand. So you want to have strong people that you trust to represent you, because that's going to build your overall brand. And when you have multiple people actually intentionally building up their personal brands, you're actually shoring yourself up to not run into the risk of, if you're trying to sell, there being so much tied to a personal brand that things fall through. And so go into it with eyes wide open that whether or not you think that your personal founder brand is what's being promoted by the agency brand in your customers' minds, it probably is.
Love it. Love it. I think that's a really clear and sort of complementary way that you're building the value in the brand, but you're leveraging the critical people who are driving that brand to sort of create this net uplift effect.
Absolutely. I mean, the people make the place, and there's no way to get around that in a service-based business.
For sure, for sure. Let me ask, from like your lens, like, for those listening in, the thing that really caught my attention when we spoke last, or one of the many things, was just I really enjoyed the business model and your specific offering. And I would love you just to walk through, for anyone listening in who might be interested in engaging you, like, what is that journey? What does it look like to work with you? And sort of who should reach out? Why should they reach out? And what does that journey look like?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share. That's not normal on podcasts. So this is wonderful. Thank you. So I'm working with agencies that are between 1 million and 10 million. Typically, they have 25 employees or less. And what they are striving to do is to grow. And they want to adopt the revenue generation mindset across their whole team. So what the engagements look like are starting out with some in-depth auditing and building out a roadmap. The roadmap's going to identify 30, 60, 90-day quick wins. And then it's also going to give a 6-month and a 12-month game plan for the agency or the service business to really be building out their inbound marketing, account-based marketing, customer experience, their relationship building plan, their consultative selling plan. All of those components are what's going to be in that audit and roadmap. And the end goal of that roadmap is to provide a framework that the founder can be leading their team through. So it's not just going to all be on the founder to do everything. That's actually antithetical to what I'm trying to do with my clients. What I'm trying to help them do is find ways to delegate responsibility to key people on their team. So they might have someone who their job function is not necessarily marketing related, but they love to manage social media. And so they wind up helping support with social media efforts. You might have someone that their typical job is just like account management, but they would be a really good spokesperson on a podcast. So you get them involved in that way. So you identify the strengths of your people, which is going to vary business to business, and you equip them to actually service. And so that's what we're going to do in the audit and roadmap. Where there are gaps, we're going to look for ways to fill those gaps. So outsourcing, hiring someone like Yoni to help recruit people into your organization to fill those gaps is really, really important. The other aspect of this is that I work with clients on a long-term basis. I'm not just jumping in, telling you what to do, and then just disappearing. We're going at this on a long-term basis so that, one, I can hold you accountable, and we build out personalized scorecards to do that in each of the areas so that I can help hold you accountable to what you say you're going to do. And then also having regular meetings where we're identifying where things are falling through the cracks, any roadblocks, any opportunities that are continuing to pop up, having conversations about all of the other things that happen in business, looking at your financials, making sure things are healthy, and just going through some of the typical rhythm of business so that you're not looking at it alone as a founder, because that can be a really challenging thing to feel like you have no one else to have eyes on what's going on in your business. It doesn't have to all be on you. So that's the typical engagement. Usually I stagger my clients down to eventually a quarterly check-in cadence, because I want them to be self-sustainable, but I want to have that long-term connection to their business growth and goals. So depending on the client, we phase them down at different timeframes, but that is always the goal, is self-sufficiency, having the system running really, really well, in something that you've built. It's not fully outside of you. It's something that you own. So you've got all of that equity in it as well. So that's kind of the premise there. Does that help, Yoni?
Massively so. And I think the exciting, unique thing about it is that it's like a done with you with ongoing support, which I think for a lot of people, there's that push-pull of, and I think what's even more interesting in your specific case is that you're actually working with agencies where their goal is to handle all of that accountability for a service provider to help them, whether it's whatever, creative, paid, performance, SEO, inbound, ABM, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas what you're actually offering here is a unique approach where it's not, you're teaching them how to fish, you're taking them on that journey, and then you're slowly graduating them beyond it. And I think, it's an amazing thing for anyone who is founder running an agency to, be able to take those skill sets in-house while having the ongoing support. And that was, listening again to how you communicate your value proposition and your solution, I think that's is very compelling from that standpoint. I think for a lot of the people that would both see and derive tremendous value from it. So very, very helpful. The last question I've got for you, Danielle, is, we've gone through a broad range of topics in a pretty short period of time. And I'm just curious, is there anything that I should have asked you or anything that, for an agency owner, it's the must-do thing or the things that you're saying? I'm not going to ask you an AI question. I feel like everyone's doing that stuff these days. So please.
I would say, because everyone was so focused on AI, honestly, it's going to be like a side AI question. Because everyone's so focused on AI, you can create this huge value proposition with your client base that is so relationship founded. That's what people crave. We're humans. We're designed for relationship. And so if you can offer that and build your business around that premise, you're going to do better than your competitors. The other thing I would attach to that is, just because your competitors are doing something, one, it doesn't mean that it's working. And two, it doesn't mean that there isn't a better way to be doing things. So keep your eye on your customer first and look at what your competitors are doing second. Customer first, competitor second.
Amazing. Danielle, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was awesome to absorb all the value that you're able to provide. And just for those listening, one last thing, if they were to look to contact you, how would they find you? What's the best avenue? Yeah,
absolutely. LinkedIn is going to be the best platform to find me on. My website is gettingmomentum.com as well, if you want to send me a message there or book some time on my calendar.
Perfect. Well, we'll put them in the show notes. And again, thanks so much.
Thanks, Yoni.